out that mother-in-law's an anagram of woman Hitler. And a few other bits and pieces. So I'm taking back to speaking. Therefore, I'll hand over to the more articulate and the better-looking best man, Hunter.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I assume everyone who knows Tim thinks of him as an exceptionally kind, thoughtful, and generous guy, apart from the present incident just now. But, and those are words that are absolutely true, and I'll be the first in line to describe you as that. But no one really wants to hear about that on a day like today in the next 10 minutes slot that I've got. So on behalf of Ben and myself, I thought I'd try and educate the congregation, as it were, about a few other characteristics that are lesser known about Tim and how those have formed the great man that we see in front of us today. Before I do, I just want to make an apology about the original wedding invitation that went out. Clearly, maybe it's a printer error, maybe it was taken out deliberately, but one of your middle names seems to have escaped the invitation, which we thought was rather awkward. So, being a perfectionist, and just for the sake of correctness, I thought I'd just read out what the invitation should have said. So it should have been really on behalf of Major Timothy William Piggy Oakes, just to be accurate. I've known Oakesy, I'm going to call him Oakesy, I don't really know him as Tim so much. So I've known Oakesy since university, and that absolute gold dust of a nickname seems to have bypassed those 3 years. So that's really formed the basis of most of the speech. We'll do some nicer stuff at the end. To tell the story, I apologise for his schoolmates who are here, so on behalf of them. Tim was at an all-boys school, I think until summertime, and was studying Lord of the Flies, English GCSE, literature, probably a D grade. See? Boys being boys, and Tim being slightly bigger bones, he quickly earned the name Piggy from the book, which, if you've read it or not, it's pretty offensive. It stuck with him until the end of school, when clearly he managed to reinvent himself as the rugby-playing ladies' man that he'd have you believe he achieved at university. Well, you've had a good run of it. I mean, it's been sort of 13 years since we started at university or so, but thanks to my good friends at Facebook and Twitter, Major Piggy Oakes is reborn. Born on the 14th of October 1980, which is Monday. Just to clarify, our wedding present is sort of doubled up with your birthday and like separate gifts. Tim was as big a softie then as we know he is today. So much so that when his younger sister, Beth, was born, Tim's mother, Jane, had to buy Tim a little doll to make him comfortable. Call it what you will, just so he too could change nappies and take her for walks, and just like Mummy was doing. This is a bit of an assumption on my part, but thankfully, I think the doll has gone. But Tim's maternal instinct stays strong with his new dog, while relatively new dog's slow. So that's When we first met in the first week of Reading University, I was studying land management, and Tim was studying rural resource management. And this may mean nothing to a lot of you. So just to put it in context, the difference is about 3 Bs at A level. As much as we land managers thought that we were the superior ones with our silver golf GTIs, polo crew shirts, collars popped up, plummy accent standard, occasionally, once, the rural resource managers did manage to get one up on us, and I want to share that story with you. So, in our final year, third year at Reading, Tim and I, Oakesy and I, had finally had a class together. I chose to take an optional module in something called farm buildings, obviously. With a name like that, and my father being a farmer, I thought this was an absolute banker for top marks. The project was to design and cost a farm building. I sank myself into designing the best damn cattle shed anyone this side of Taunton has ever seen. Innovative design features, site visits, topographical studies, you name it. this was the Ritz house.
Door, roof, that kind of thing.
At first, all the way, who knew what Oaksy was doing in his room? I dread to think. Probably watching movies from his literally blockbuster collection. Mate, can you hand this in for me if you're going to campus? He said to me on deadline day. Sure. So there I was, probably skipping to campus in my glee, with in my left hand a bound set of documents, which were mine, probably on scented paper. In my right hand, no joke, a series of crumpled sheets of paper which appeared to show that Oaksy had given the paper to a small child, which were all not even 3D, a very basic shed. I made sure the tutor knew absolutely whose was whose. Results day came, we went to the lecture together, in the golf probably. I knew it was going to be embarrassing. It was worse. Oaks, 70%, well done. Booth, 55%. Still remember the pain of the V sign being shot. Quite rightly back in my box. I don't know how you did it. Presumably your legendary charm helped pave the way for that mark. Maybe it was the female lecturer, I don't want to speculate. We'll find out how you did it one day. Not only was Oaksy clearly flying academically at university, he was also flourishing something called the Officers Training Corps. And for those of you here who that means nothing, the OTC is really I suppose, a breeding ground for partly trained, well-rounded young people wanting to become officers. To others, it's just yet another excuse for a booze up whilst getting paid for it. Oaksy and I straddled these two camps. While I suspiciously had excellent attendance at the social events, with the odd weekend thrown in here for good measure, Oaksy was the other way around. Excellent attendance, boots you could eat your dinner off. He even managed to fatten up enough to get into the Royal Artillery section. Although clearly you wouldn't know it today, so it sort of ruined my joke, actually. Oaksy flourished in a university army life, so it was no great surprise that when he announced that he was going for a year-long holiday in somewhere called Sandhurst. It was either that or a career in farm building design, I would have thought. I've got the greatest respect for everyone who takes on this year, as the story sounds frankly horrendous. However, as in so many times, Oaksy's pain was my gain when the passing out ball happened, and Oaksy invited a bunch of his desk jockey mates and his young officer pals to the passing out ball. Fun night, although for me, in the civilian world, it is a strange experience to feel decidedly underdressed whilst wearing black tie compared to all the young officers in their #1 blues dress. However, when you are wearing it, I think I fancy you a little bit. An odd thing to say. I'll spare you the details of Oaksy's then army career for two very distinct reasons. #1, despite trying hard, I have no idea what you do. And #2, I can never do it justice. Suffice it to say that I was very proud of Tim becoming major. Although a little surprised the British Army would see fit to promote someone who had apparently Camp Bastion on high alert after failing to check in on what was supposed to be a very routine patrol. Johnny Three Syndicates here has many strings to his bow. The aforementioned keenness for shooting being one. He also skis annoyingly well, having honed his skill with the army and the Oaks family's keenness for the sport. These pursuits give him ample opportunity to use his well-honed people skills. He really is a people person, as you all know, not to mention a charmer. Mothers-in-law love him. Mothers-in-law love him. And not only his own mother-in-law, other mothers-in-law love him as well. What I barely managed to achieve in 4 years of genuinely hard graft, Oaksy managed to achieve with one incredibly sweet letter to my future mother-in-law before my wedding, outlining how excited he was to be such a big part of the day. He was my best man. And if only I'd known that was all it took. He's also a very determined and tenacious person, another couple of characteristics. And these were required to get into our wedding in 2010. It was the time of the Great Icelandic Ash Cloud, and people were having a tough time getting to Edinburgh. Oaksy was on his biannual holiday to the Falklands, and things were not looking good. Well, up to 2 days before the wedding, I thought that the RAF might not pull this one off. But with true Battle of Britain grit or something, I got a call on Thursday evening from the Edinburgh Castle Officers' Mess, gin and tonic in hand, from Oaksy, wondering what all the fuss was about. Never doubted it. The skills that Oaksy's learned in the army are undoubtedly extremely useful in civilian life. One word of caution, you need to be very careful how you utilise those skills, as demonstrated by this next anecdote. So, in the early days of wooing Gabby, Gabby foolishly, with hindsight, went out, which is, I think, a relatively normal activity. Foolish. Tim spotted an opportunity. Gabby had also left behind her lovely Dubarry boots, which I understand are very expensive. Tim went to presumably his boot polishing cupboard, filed through the alphabetical list of polishes, and got to work. He'd never polished like this before. It was some of his best work, and that's terrifying. I was at the receiving end of polishing his shoes for my wedding, and I haven't polished them since. Winner. He sat back relaxed, waited for Gabby to come back. Gabby came back in, saw Tim gleaming, saw an even more gleaming pair of boots. Tim waited for the inevitable reaction. What Tim hadn't appreciated was that the boots were in fact sweat. Pulling them to within an inch of their life didn't appear to what she wanted to happen. So, seemed to have come back from that. Just to wrap up, living in Hong Kong for the last couple of years, and obviously moving around such places as Benbecula, Lark Hill, Costa del Falklands, it's been tough to catch up properly. It sort of doesn't matter. It's lovely when we do. We just pick up where we left off, however long it's been. The downside of that has meant that I haven't been able to get to know Gabby as well as I'd like. Skype's brilliant, but it's not quite the same. So, the first picture I saw of Gabby was on Facebook, a dashing tweed two-piece number, surrounded by gun dogs. I gave Oaksy the thumbs up immediately. I know she must be a top girl. She's obviously met with Tim's exacting standards in the opposite sex. Large chest, love of dogs, self-sufficient, ample bosom, happy to spend extended periods together, love of country pursuits, and above average cleavage. Gabby, it's been a pleasure getting to know you this week. We finally met on Monday, for the first time, which is ridiculous, but it's been a pleasure getting to know you. You've got a good one, Oaksy. There's not a bad big bone in his body. He's immensely kind, thoughtful, and generous. And he's the most kind friend I have, and I treasure his friendship immensely. I say generous. There's a very fine line between generosity and just being ridiculously crap with money. This is something you want to watch in your early married life and try and stamp out. Tim's mother tried, bless her, in the early years by literally making him sit on his Monopoly money so that he couldn't physically spend it. So good luck with that. I think that's probably enough for me. I would ask you please be upstanding one last time for a toast to the new Mr. and Mrs. Oaks.
Mr. and Mrs. Oaks.